Hey, what's up, guys? It's MugenLord here, and as I said before, 2024 is going to be ridiculous as far as gaming is concerned. We already talked about the list of games that's going to be releasing, jam-packed for the first half of this year that I'm anticipating, and I'll be definitely covering here on this channel. But we also got to talk about the cultural side of this as well, as far as gaming and entertainment is concerned, where we talk about localizers. Localizers are the villains when it comes to localizing games from the East, such as Japanese studios and Korean studios, when it comes to bringing games over here in the West. We've been talking about this, how they've been pretty much promoting censorship, and we've been fighting this back and forth, and a lot of people still thought this was a conspiracy about how these localizers are not really changing our games or changing the context of games and pretty much putting propaganda and their own beliefs into our favorite titles. Now, throughout social media, and everybody's talking about this, is because now we have Japanese studios coming out and telling us that these localizers will approach them and suggest that they change certain contexts of these games to fit the standards or to fit the social aspects that's going on here in the West. Now they're amending it. And we also have a localizer who's also on the record explaining and admitting that they're purposely changing things to fit their narrative. So before we dive into this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. Now, as I said before, man, localization has been ridiculous. It's been going crazy. It's been a hot topic of a discussion within the gaming community itself about how gamers are getting sick of these localizers who pretty much infiltrated the gaming industry, and now they're pretty much inputting their own propaganda, their own social political beliefs in content and media that doesn't need it, where it doesn't belong, and people want that raw, honest, true localization that they have been craving, which makes a lot of gamers say, hell with English localization. I want to just go over and just try to go to the main source and get the Japanese version. And what's even crazier is other people within the gaming industry or gamers themselves are going over to other localizations, going over to Spanish localizations, German localizations, and all these other different type of localizations in order to get that true translation for games that's coming from the East. So what companies are pretty much being affected by this? And you'll be surprised. I wouldn't say be surprised. I wouldn't say that at all. But we have two big companies that's on the record saying that how their I guess you would say localization or the localizers will come in and tell them what they need to change when it comes to the content before having it shipped over here into the West. So we're going to dive into an article from Niche Gamer. They pretty much give us a summary of what's been going on, and then I'm giving you my thoughts and opinions on this entire situation. So as we have here, it says localizers admit to proactively censoring games for a Western audience. So it says localizers inside the gaming industry have admitted to proactively censoring games for Western release. A recent article from the Japan Times covered the role of localization when it comes to bringing Japanese media to English-speaking audience, and a handful of statements in particular stood out. One statement from Frank Genti, the senior localization manager at Bandai Namco, attributes some of the changes to the Me Too movement. We already been through this Me Too movement, and as I said before, Gamergate, and then after Gamergate, we had the Me Too movement that really shook up the industry in general, not just Hollywood, but it also impacted the gaming industry as well, which pretty much made these studios feel like they're walking on eggshells, and now it made them start treading a bit differently, and it allowed these people to come in and infiltrate and allowed them to pretty much dictate how entertainment is now going to run. So as I continue, it says that #MeToo, and that they need to tell Japanese game developers how to dress their heroines. We tell them that the cleavage is a bit too exposed or the skirt is a bit too short. Before, they weren't even very flexible, but they become more proactive on such subjects. And now this is what we're seeing. We already talked about this before, that these localizers are the ones that's ruining this. And then of course you're always going to have the naysayers saying that it's a conspiracy theory, that we're complaining too much. And now we're actually starting to get first hands on this, especially from Bandai Namco, that these localizers come in and tell them what they need to change before having these games ship over here into the West. So, as I continue, it says fans have been concerned about how activist localizers could encourage censorship in games being brought westward, but rarely have they ever spoken so brazenly about it. It's a problem that came to mind when Sony Entertainment restructured as Sony Interactive Entertainment and moved from Japan to California. And I already said this before. Sony seems more of a Western studio or a Western company now compared to what it used to be in the past, especially when they were based in Japan. They were Japanese in spirit, and you was able to tell that by that in the early 90s and all the way up into the early 2000s. And it seemed like ever since they made that move, in California of all places, that's the home of all this nonsense. And they moved their studios to over there, and now look at the current state of Sony. And a lot of their Japanese studios, they closed, and you don't really get a lot of those Japanese games as you used to get. And they've been focusing more on the Western side, trying to give that Western appeal. So, I digress. These proactive changes encouraged by their Western counterpart has led to Japanese developers anticipating the desires of localizers. Masayoshi Yokoyama, the executive producer of Like a Dragon Yakuza series, explained how they now seek out the opinions of localizers when developing the game. And I don't understand this. This really confused me, because here you have people like me, gamers like me, telling these Japanese developers, continue doing what you're doing. You're kicking the West's ass, especially when it comes to anime, manga, and all sorts of things. And especially now, a lot of these Japanese games, a lot of people are running to them is because they're giving these gamers what they want. And for some strange reason, even after gamers are telling you that, hey, continue to make the games that we enjoy, this is what we want, and for some strange reason, these Japanese developers still insist. They still insist on going to these Western localizers or these Western activist groups, asking for their advice and what they should do to pretty much maximize, I guess, their appeal to a wide range or to the modern audience, when we tell you that we don't want this. And you see all the examples of how these products from the West are failing, and yet some of these Japanese developers still insist on wanting to get advice from these Western activists. It just boggles my mind. So, a quote from the Yakuza Like a Dragon developer: "Many representations which were normal in Japan in the first Like a Dragon games are no longer acceptable today. We ask our team in the United States and Europe to read the game script, and they tell us if they see things that wouldn't be acceptable in their country." And that's where the problem is, man. They keep going to these people and then having them go in and change it. The thing about why we love Japanese media so much is because it's Japanese in spirit. It's not impacted by what's going on in the West, because they live in Japan. What issues and what things that goes on in their country goes on in their country, and then what goes on in the West should have no impact on that. And that's why people love them, because they stay rooted in their Japanese culture. And now what happens when you start taking the West politics and activism and you start interjecting that into Japanese culture, when by the time it reaches here, then there's no difference.
For example, like with game localization, you're usually doing it, there's going to be an English dub. None of the Japanese source material is going to be available to the player. So you can get a lot more creative with it. You can, adjust the cultural interpretations as you need to. At some cases, you can even contact the developer and be like, hey, I want to change this little visual aspect so it works better with our culture. So you have a little bit more control over what the player is going to experience as a localizer.
Now there's no difference. So, as we continue, while the problem of censorship in gaming localization has long been known, is still smoldering compared to the recent flashpoint in manga and anime. Recently, localizers have had to justify their positions after the ancient Magus Bride began to simultaneously publish in Japanese and English thanks to artificial intelligence, AI. Even voice actors that have embedded themselves in the industry have reasons to concern, as fans can now redub anime with AI using more accurate translations. However, for gaming, it's modders instead of AI at the forefront, restoring cut content. And this is what's been going on when it comes to this, man, is that now it's starting to take, it takes the gamers to come in, it takes the community to come in to fight against this. And what's so sad is we're going to start finding and start seeing more Japanese developers for some reason wanting to cave in or wanting to cater to a lot of this Western nonsense when you're doing good. Like people are buying your product, people are enjoying your product. Why are you catering, and why do you have to give into this nonsense that gamers are telling you do not do? We do not want this. This is why we are over here. This is why we enjoy you, because you're rooted in what you do in Japan, in your culture. You give us what we want. We just want to have fun. We just want games that we enjoy. We don't want games preaching to us. And what's so sad about it is we have Bandai Namco, which I've also defended numerous of times here on this channel, and it's sad to see that Bandai Namco has fallen victim to this. Now we're going to, like I said before, we're going to start expecting, I believe in 2024 and beyond, we're going to start seeing some changes in Bandai Namco and how female characters are represented, or how certain contexts are going to be changed around to suit the modern audience. And that is really, really sad, because Bandai Namco was one of those companies that I seen as base, especially with Harada with the Tekken series, and his response where we talked about when some activist or some moron came in and tried to accuse Tekken for being racist and everything, and Harada had a response to it. But to see the studio itself, or see the company itself caving into this, is so sad. And then what's even more sad is that Sega is now falling into this, which I'll be covering a separate video where I'll be covering Like a Dragon, because there's a lot of controversy on that forefront as far as DLC is concerned, and them and their monetization schemes. And then also with the fact is that now they're moving into the whole Western influence in the modern audience, where you start seeing it sprinkling in that game as well. So stay tuned for that video. And then of course Square Enix, we cannot forget them. I'll also be covering a video to where the creators of Final Fantasy VII, the OG, are starting to say that they starting to have regrets of how they portrayed certain themes and characters, and they feel ashamed of that, and they hoping that with remake and other games moving forward, that they will pretty much try to atone for that or change certain aspects of that. And that's so sad. These are companies that I've always grown to love. These were legacy companies that gave me some of my favorite games that I've grown up with. And now that the West has poisoned everything they touched, they ruined. And now they have finally sink their claws into the Japanese market, or to these Japanese developers. Because you have to understand, the reason why a lot of these companies are, especially in the East, is pretty much changing up how they present these games to appeal to the modern audience and to the Western side of the world. Is you got to understand, the West is such a big market. It's a big market in gaming. This is like the Grand Line, right, I would say, and from One Piece. America, or the West, is like the Grand Line. So this is the thing, a lot of these studios in the East want a piece of the Grand Line, which is the West. And the thing is, since the West has been infiltrated, has been captured, and now since these studios want a piece of it, they also seeing that maybe in order to get a piece of this, maybe I have to give in, or maybe I have to pretty much sell out if that's going to allow me to tap into that potential market that's here. When they don't have to do that. All they have to do is just be Japanese. All they have to do is be a Korean studio. All they have to do is be a Chinese studio, or whatever other studio that's in the East. That's all they have to be, and people will give them their money. They will do it. And as I said before, Power World is a perfect example of that. That these is just Japanese studio that just created a game that people just wanted to play and have fun. They just want to have fun. And that is proof right there. They're giving the fans what they want. They're not bending the knee or to anything. They just want to give the fans what they want, and they want to play the game. That's all they want. and it's just so sad. And it seems that we as the gamers, we as fans of this genre or this medium, we have to be the ones that has to fight against this. And like I explained before, the modders are on the forefront for gaming. And then we also have the translation with AI on the manga and animation side of things. We have to fight this. And the only way to fight this is if, for one, you support independent developers who are actually going out to create an experience that people enjoy, or, as I said before, do what I'm doing, creating my own media for myself that hopefully the rest of you guys would enjoy when I pretty much release my content. So that's the only way we'll be able to combat this. You have to get prepared. You ain't gonna be able to rely like Japan used to be the bastion of hope when it comes to this, but you're gonna start seeing a lot of these Japanese companies start just selling out, and you're gonna have to get ready for it because it's going to happen. You have to get ready for it. So in order to prepare for it, you have to start doing something about it. And I want to keep repeating it. You have to do something about it. In order to do something about it, you have to stand on some moral integrity. You gotta have some willpower, and you have to speak with your wallet. If not speak with your wallet, give your money to developers who's going to give you what you need, or you create your own. That's all. I'm gonna keep saying it in videos like this. Create your own. That's the only way to combat this, and that's how and let these studios burn. Don't get upset anymore. Let these studios burn. If they want to do this, if they want to fall into the Western trap, let them do it. Let them do it. Let them go. Turn your back on them. Let them go. Let them find out the hard way by going this direction. Let them find out the hard way. Sometimes it's going to take a collapse. We're going to let the industry. We're going to have to let the gaming industry collapse. We're going to have to let it collapse at this point in order for these people to learn. We're going to need a reset at some point, but in order for us to do that, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. But that pretty much wraps up this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. And as I said before, in order to fight this, you have to stand for something. So if you like the video, give me your thoughts and comments, and I'll be seeing you guys later. This is MugenLord, sign off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.